Figured I'd do a quick replay video of one of the games I just played and mention that if you go into the account settings and game history, you can actually look at all your old games and go through and replay, which allows you to kind of flip through the games a little faster. So this is the initial hand I stuck with. This is my Pauper Energy kind of stompy deck. It takes some of the elements from Stompy, adds a little bit of energy stuff, and then tries to really focus on counters and proliferating. So I have this as my initial hand. Even though I've only got one forest, I went ahead and I went with it because I have this Attune with Ether card, which allows me to grab another basic land, and the fact that I can play a Young Wolf on turn 1, which is really helpful. Okay, my opponent plays a Mountain on turn 1. I flip back through. I didn't even see his chat message. I wonder what he said. Anyway, so I play a Forest, and then I'll play a Young Wolf. Young Wolf's pretty sweet because it's got Undying, so it really gives them a disincentive to try to kill it off. So he's got a Swamp played on his second turn. He plays this Bloodseeker. So whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, under an opponent's control, you may have that player lose 1 life. This is actually really bad for my hand because I've got a lot of creatures like the Young Wolf that are going to be entering the battlefield a couple of times. And I've got a lot of creatures that I would like to get into the battlefield, so I'll be losing a fair amount of life just from creatures. So I draw a forest, which is great. So I go ahead and play that forest. I don't really have anything else I can play this turn, but the good news is I've got a Hunger of the Howlpack and a Vines of Vastwood, which will both allow me to either pump and save a creature or add a bunch of counters after a creature dies. So what I usually like to do with the Hunger of the Howlpack is wait till Young Wolf dies and then play this on it as it comes back, because it's at instant speed, so I can play it on the opponent's turn as well. So I go ahead and tap Attune with Ether here to get my 3rd land after attacking with Young Wolf, because I'm fine with him killing me. Because it's Undying, I return stronger, so I would love for a trade to happen there. He doesn't oblige me, which is smart on his part. Play that Attune with Ether, grab an island, which I'll play next turn. Attune with Ether also gives me energy, which I'll hopefully get to use on the Thriving Rhino as well. He goes ahead and does 1 damage back to me. We're moving forward. And then he plays a Goblin Death Raiders, which I didn't even realize was a Pauper illegal card, but that's pretty solid for a 2-drop in Pauper, a 3/1 with Trample. You could pump it up and do some good damage with it. So I was a little worried about that. I draw a Thrumming Bird, which is great for my Proliferate strategy, so I'm pretty excited about that. And frankly, I probably should have just played it here and then been able to wait for another land drop before I played Thriving Rhino, because there's so much removal in Pauper, cheap removal that can kill a 3, and I should have known better with him having 1 red mana left untapped. But you know what? I didn't know better, and I went ahead and played Thriving Rhino, which then essentially turns on his removal. He plays Lightning Bolt at it immediately, which sucks because I don't have any untapped mana to save it. So I lost my Thriving Rhino kind of on an overly aggressive play. I probably should have just played Thrumming Bird there and kept Vines of Vastwood open to protect a creature, because it's very important in this deck to get as many creatures out there doing stomping damage as you can, and I'm already outnumbered 2-1, so my strategy's not going well so far. His main phase, he plays another 3/1, and then this card's ability is also counterproductive to me. Whenever another creature dies again, so it's very similar to this, I get another 1 damage dealt to me. So at this point, things were looking pretty rough. I did keep the Young Wolf around on defense, just to try to keep them from attacking, because he kills either of those and comes back stronger. At which point, you know, I'd be pretty happy with that. But it doesn't happen. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and cast my Thrumming Bird like I should have done last turn. This leaves open Hunger of the Howlpack, which I think is good. So I do lose 1 life as I enter the battlefield. Sorry, this one causes me to lose 1 life as a creature enters. This one causes me to lose 1 as a creature leaves. So it does double damage on a Undying Young Wolf, unfortunately. So now that makes him have an advantage if my creature dies, so I'm not willing to push it until I can add a counter via the Thrumming Bird next turn. So we get to his turn. He's going to go ahead and attack with just the one doing trample damage. So he knows he's going to do 2 damage to me through that. We're both going to die. I do 1 damage, and then he's going to get to do 1 damage here and 1 damage here. So he's essentially doing 4 damage to me and forcing me to block with my Young Wolf and use its Undying ability. And he's all completely untapped on his end from mana. So he could probably also cast a Lightning Bolt or something on my Young Wolf that comes back. Fortunately, I've left open 1 forest, so I can protect my Young Wolf when it comes back. So that's why I was okay with sacrificing the Young Wolf here. Both of those triggered abilities hit. So 2 creatures died, so he actually did 5 damage to me that turn with that trade-off. So that was a pretty good deal for him. So we reach the end of his main phase. He pays for Lightning Bolt to hit Young Wolf. So since it's only a Lightning Bolt, I could have used Vines of Vastwood to protect it, but since we had the Morbid this turn of a creature leaving, I went ahead and used Hunger the Howl Pack here. Because not only do I get to rob him of his Lightning Bolt, but I also get to add a bunch of +3 counters to my creature. Now if he had a second Lightning Bolt, it would have been pretty unfortunate for me to be removed, but I was kind of hoping he didn't. He doesn't, but he does create 2 1/1 red goblin creatures to serve as blockers. So again, I'm still outnumbered at this point, but now I've got a good 5/5 Undying creature, and I've still got a way to protect it. So I'm actually feeling pretty good at this point. So this is where I made an interesting decision. In retrospect, I think I probably should have played my Thrumming Bird here, gotten 2 of them out. What I was worried about is him attacking on my turn, and I didn't want him to be able. I wanted to get an attack in this turn, and then be able to pump with Vines of Vastwood to eliminate all of his creatures if he blocks. So I went ahead and did this. I go ahead and attack with both because I want to proliferate. So I'm hoping he blocks all 5 across the board to try to kill my Young Wolf. Then I would pump with the Vines of Vastwood to kill all of his creatures and be ahead. So that's what I tried to bait him into. Doesn't work. But the good news is my Thrumming Bird allows me to proliferate. So I proliferate onto my wolf, and now he's a 6/6. And I've still got protection for him up. Now at this point, for some reason I think I thought maybe I had an extra island or something. But I also wanted to prevent 3 damage because I was a little bit worried about my count knowing he has Lightning Bolts in his hand. So I'm not exactly sure I did this wrong. It was probably a pretty close play, but I go ahead and play Clutch of Currents here. Sorry, that went a little fast. So I returned his creature. He's going to go ahead and attack for 3 damage against me, but that's 3 instead of 6. And then he'll play that same creature again in his second main phase. But I knew, it'll cost him 3 mana out of 4. So that was kind of my reasoning behind it, and it would save me from 3 damage since I went in with both attackers last time. So now I've essentially got the same option again, but since he's only got 1 blocker this time, I don't have to worry about my Young Wolf dying anyway. So I'm not going to do Clutch of Currents. What I'm going to do is leave all my mana untapped, throw up a Thrumming Bird, and then also have the ability to pump my Thrumming Bird to block next turn. So it kind of changed my math a little bit here in that he's only got 1 creature up to defend now. So I go ahead and attack with both. I don't know if he makes the best decision by not blocking here, because it comes to bite him in the end. Because now he's looking at a 7/7 creature, and he can always chump block next turn, but I don't know. So I go ahead and play the Thrumming Bird. I lose 1 life, but I'm down to 8. He's down to 6. But I have the ability to block with at least one of my creatures, so as long as he doesn't have a pump spell, I should be good for at least one more turn. And then hopefully I can figure out a way to get to lethal soon, either using Clutch of Currents to send back a blocker, or Vines of Vastwood to pump a creature that gets through. So he gets a little life gain, which doesn't help me. And then he plays Arc Lightning. Now this forces me to make a decision here. I don't want him to kill my only blocker and be able to do 6 damage out of 8 to me this turn, and kill me if he has, if he draws a lightning next turn or something. Because I don't think I would be able to get him. Well, I guess he'd probably leave open one chump blocker, but still, he probably would have been able to do 5 damage to me. So I decide at this point I'm going to cast Vines of Vastwood and pump it so that I have a blocker that's 5/5 that's bigger than his 3/1. So I play a little bit defensively here. Unfortunately, this also gets rid of my essentially guaranteed potential victory on the other end, because I had the potential to cast Vines of Vastwood as an instant on any of my attackers that would get through his blockers. But I think I played this correctly to play a little conservatively. Again, it was probably close. But he would have had the ability to do... It looks like, yeah, I might have played it right. He would have had the ability to do lethal here, because I forgot about his creature leaving the battlefield effect doing extra damage to me. So had I let this Thrumming Bird die, I would not have had any blockers, and he would have been able to do lethal damage to me. So he actually doesn't attack. Now he's a little worried, and he's got to play defensively. So the good news is I've still got Clutch of Currents, and I've also got Steady Progress. So before I draw a card, I think my plan here was going to be to play Steady Progress, Proliferate, grab another counter, and attack with my Thrumming Bird, pump this up to an 8/8. Makes it really hard to remove. And then maybe next turn, if I can get him to try to do something offensively with these creatures, then maybe next turn I can use Clutch of Currents to move any blockers out of the way. My other option here, and this is another thing I considered very seriously, was to cast Clutch of Currents to remove his 3/1, then go ahead and attack with my Young Wolf. That's a 7, knowing that he can only potentially do 3 damage, and he's probably only got a 3 damage spell up his sleeve with that untapped mana. So, I don't know. Had I not drawn the card I eventually drawn, I probably would have played Clutch of Currents here, sent that back, and tried to jam through some damage. But I drew the perfect spell for this situation. So I go ahead and cast it. That makes my decision easy. I'm going to get rid of one blocker. Then I'm going to cast Rancor on my Young Wolf. So that gives him trample. Now he's got 9/7 trample damage. It's not quite enough to be lethal. So he's got 3 blockers. So I could do 6 damage. Yeah, I guess it is enough to be lethal. I forgot about my Thrumming Bird. So this is where he quits the game. So I had enough on board to do lethal. Unless he like flame bolted me or something to kill my Thrumming Bird. But either way, a 9/7 creature with trample is still going to be pretty tough to get rid of. I also had Proliferate, which would allow me to draw another card and add more counters as well. So I think you can see how relatively quickly the counter strategy can get out of hand between that Hunger of Howlpack card that adds 3 the same turn Young Wolf gets killed. And I think it's great to be strategic with that, because you essentially get to dictate when Young Wolf dies by using him as a chump blocker, and then casting Hunger of the Howlpack immediately makes him a 5/5. And then if you can get Rancor on him, he's a very, very tough creature to deal with at that point. And my Thrumming Bird also attacked, I think, 3 times and added, an additional, or at least twice. My Thrumming Bird added 2 additional counters as well. So it's a pretty cool deck. I've got a really cool new creature coming out in the new pack that's not available yet. It's something like a Scavenging Bandar. It's a cat monkey. It enters the battlefield with 2 counters on it already. It's a 0/0 creature, but it enters with 2 counters on it. And at any point you can move those counters to another creature. So if he gets killed, you can just slide his counters as he's dying, right before he dies. Just click on him, slide his counters to a new creature, and give the counters away. And then he also benefits from all of my proliferate mechanics. So I think that creature will be really, really sweet. I'm going to get rid of one of my 2-drop creatures that's not as great, and replace him, and I think he'll fit in the deck perfectly. The ability to move counters whenever I want is also really great, because if I combine him with the Thrumming Bird, then I can give more of his counters away to a creature who has trample on it or whatever. I think it opens up a lot more of the potential benefits of this deck. I thought this was a pretty cool game because I really felt like this guy was going to win. And then once the counter strategy got rolling and I was able to withstand a little bit of his removal, playing my Vines of Vastwood and my Hunger of the Howl pack cards, I was able to withstand a couple of lightning bolt and an arc lightning. Then I was really able to kind of take over and dominate the game from that point forward. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video.